Today, I'll be like going through majority of concepts, basic concepts on life insurance to be precise. So you will get a fair idea on like how the insurance industry operates and what are the clauses, what are the terms in the policy, and how are the premiums calculated. Just I would just touch base on each of the terminologies to be precise. Okay. The first question arises is like, what is life insurance? Before starting with what is life insurance, I would like to let you know a concept on why do we require insurance, and which are the events which are covered by the insurance. Okay, so you might know that when we talk about the term risk, we are talking about it occurs by chance, any unexpected result which occurs by chance, which could either be a loss, gain, okay, or it could be a neutral situation, there was neither a loss or a gain, but that was some kind of risk. Okay, so depending upon that, risk is basically categorized into uh, two terms, you can say. One is a speculative risk and one is a pure risk. When we say a speculative risk, when I talk about a speculative risk, it means that a risk, there is a chance that an event which occurs by chance, it could like it could be a profitable situation, or it could lead to a situation in which a person could experience a loss. Okay, so that's a speculative risk. But when we talk about a pure risk is something in which there is it involves only a loss or a neutral situation. Okay, so insurance is basically something which covers only and only pure risk. So the basic concept of insurance, that no insurance company would ever cover you for something which is speculative. So one should not gain anything from insurance. Okay, so it's basically whether they are covering your loss, and they are getting you up to a situation which was similar before you experienced a loss, or it could be a neutral situation. Okay, just in case if you have any doubts, you could always stop me and ask. So it's fine by me. Okay. So let's go through the definition first, and then I'll explain you, or maybe let you know what each and every terms mean. So life insurance is a contract between an insurer and a policyholder in which the insurer guarantees payment of a death benefit to named beneficiaries upon death of the insured. Okay, now what does this mean? So as we all know that any insurance is a contract between two parties, right? One party is the insurer. Insurer is basically your insurance company who is insuring the risk, and a policyholder. Now, policyholder is a person who is applying for an insurance. You could refer to him as an applicant before the policy is in force. Like, let's say a person A, he decides to go to insure, let's say a certain other person, let's say his wife. Okay, so the policyholder, like when he applies for the insurance, he is the applicant, and when the policy is approved by the insurance company, okay, he becomes the policyholder. Okay, hello, any doubt until now?
No,
Hello.
no doubt so
Yeah.
far.
Okay, in which the insurer guarantees payment of a death benefit. Okay, so there is an amount which he guarantees to pay. To whom? Now the next question is to whom and when. Okay, the when is the event. Now, as this is a life insurance contract, it's quite obvious that the event would be death of the insured. Now, who is the insured? Insured is the person on whose life the life insurance contract is issued. Okay. And to the named beneficiary, the beneficiary is a person who will get the death benefit upon the death of the insured. Now, there is a slight catch in this. Let's say if the policy holder and the insured, they are the same person. Like say I could decide that yes, I want to insure myself. So I'll be the policy holder and I will be the insured. Okay, in that case, the policy is called the policy holder is called policy owner insured. Okay, he will not be referred just as a policy owner. Okay, so if let's say if the policy holder decides to apply for a life insurance policy on a third person's life, so that policy will be a third party life policy. Okay, in that case, the policy holder and the insured would be two different person. Okay. Hello, any doubt?
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So now the insurance company promises a death benefit in consideration of the payment of premium by the policy owner. See, the reason the policy holder is like the most important person, one of the most important person in this contract, because he is the one who is liable to pay the premiums. Okay. Now let's say the policy holder and insured are two different person. That is, the policy holder has decided to issue a third party policy or to apply for a third party policy. Okay. And if let's say if he is not able to pay the premiums, the insurance company cannot force the insured to pay the premiums, because only the policy holder is liable to pay the premiums. Okay. So to cut the long story short, the policy holder is the person who pays the premiums. The insured is the person on whose life the contract is issued. Now let's say the contract of indemnity versus valued contract. Okay. Now what do you mean by contract of indemnity? This is pretty much from the business side. So the contract of indemnity is something in which the price is not fixed. Okay, the benefit is not fixed. That is, let's say if you incur a loss of $5,000, then the insurance company is liable to pay you 5,000 or less than that. Health insurance comes to your mind first. Like for example, let's say if you have a hospital bill of $4,000, for example, then the insurance company, like as per the terms of the contract, would agree to pay 80% of the amount. So that is the contract of indemnity in which the amount is not fixed. And when I refer to the valued contract is one in which the amount is fixed. That is the face value. What do you mean by the face value? That a typical example is a life insurance contract. And let's say you are insured for $20,000. Okay. So in the event of the death, you would get the amount which is mentioned on the contract itself. Okay, so that is what we mean by a valued contract. Okay, so I guess this occurred by chance. This is not important if we talk about business perspective. Then yes, this is a very important point. So there are underwriters, okay, in the insurance industry, and underwriters are responsible for performing the process of underwriting. Now, what is underwriting? Underwriting is a process in which the underwriters identify the risk and like assess the risk, like classify the risk. Okay. In that they do it with the help of mortality and morbidity tables. Now, what are mortality and morbidity tables? Mortality tables are basically concerned with purely with life insurance. Okay. In that, let's say they have like a good history of past 60-65 years, like what a risk a certain gender with certain habits of a certain age during the time of they are getting insured, what risk do they present to the insurance company? Okay, so when I say the underwriter is identifying the risk, it means that they take into consideration each and every aspect, like the age, the gender, the profession, uh, like even the address. Like some people might be living near a volcano or an area which is affected by tsunamis, okay, or constant earthquakes. So that does matter while like taking into consideration the premiums. Okay, so depending upon the mortality table, they have classified the risk into four types. That is standard risk, substandard risk, preferred risk, and decline. Okay, so preferred risk is something which, like, the insured is presenting a risk which is much less than the average probability of the event to be happening in the future. Okay, so in that they'll be having a pretty preferred premium rates. So accordingly, standard risk is something close to average, substandard risk is something more than average, and decline, that means that this person cannot be insured. Let's say if he's already 70 years of age, or he has suffered several heart attacks, that means that the probability is great, like the chances are high of the event to occur. So yes, in that case, the underwriters decide that yes, we cannot issue a policy to this kind of person. Okay. So now moving on. Okay. So I'll like explain you a bit about life cycle of a contract and life cycle of a claim. So hello, am I audible?
Yeah, we can
Yes.
hear you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So let's say an applicant decides to go for a life insurance contract. Okay. So now he'll approach an agent and he'll ask, he'll jot down or he will list down the requirements. Okay, these are all my requirements. These are all the features, or these are all the clauses which I want you to include in the life insurance contract. So what the agent would do, the agent would prepare a quote initially. Okay, so quote would have all the clauses and the riders which the applicant has requested for, and he'll mention the price range. Okay, once the applicant agrees on the quote, only after that the quote would go into the application stage. Okay, in the application stage, the underwriting process comes into the picture. Okay, whatever I have just mentioned, that the underwriters would identify the risk, classify the risk, the mortality tables, everything. This would come into the picture, and they'll quote the final price, the final premium price to the applicant. Okay, so if the applicant says that okay, I'm okay with the final price, we can start with the or you can issue the contract. Then and only then the contract like is comes in force. Okay, then moving on to life cycle of a claim. Now you might be aware that what a claim is. A claim is something which upon if the insured event in the contract, if the insured event is to occur in the future, at that time uh, the policy owner or the beneficiary, okay, they would not notify the insurance company. Now the notification process would include like what like when the event has occurred, at what place the event has occurred, and what is the cause of the event. Okay, so basically let's say we have like there is a application which searches the contract, for example. Okay, if the contract is an active contract, okay, I just need to enter the contract number and click on search. Okay, so first of all, the contract should be the active, it should be in the active state. then and only then I can like request for a new claim on the contract. Okay, so let's say I have an application in which my contract is in active state. Okay, and there is a button. If I click on the button, okay, then there will be a new window pop up which will ask me that, first of all, it will list all the existing claims. It might be the case, right? See, if it's not what you say, life insurance contract. Let's say if I'm talking more about PNC insurance. Let's say if you've insured your car, it could be the case, right? Like before the you're raising the current claim, you have already like raised few claims before your current claim. Okay, then it will list all the current claims, all the open claims, to be precise. Okay, this is just for the purpose that, okay, you are not reopening the same claim, you are not recreating the same claim which is already in open state. So that would create a redundancy, that would create two duplicate claims. Okay, so you need to make sure whether your existing claim is not in force at the moment. Okay, so let's assume that you are creating a new claim, you have not raised any claim before this. Okay, so in that case, what you would do, you would enter the date to begin with. So there will be a pop-up which will ask me that what date you want to enter, on what date the event has occurred, the exact event has occurred. So let's say if the event has occurred yesterday, so I'll enter 12th October 2021 in that pop-up. Okay, and I'll continue. Then I'll get the first page. See, the application which I have worked on, there are several top tabs. Okay, so let's assume that my first top tab relates to notification. In that top tab, what I'll enter like when the event has occurred again. Okay, what is the medium of notification, that is how I'm notifying. See, now this the application is not being filled by the beneficiary or the policyholder. Okay, this application is filled by the agent. Let's say the beneficiary is informing the agent via an email. Then what he needs to do, the agent needs to attach the email and then like mention that yes, the medium was email, and in the documents tab there will be another tab, top tab, documents. In that tab he'll just attach the email. Let's assume that the beneficiary is calling the agent. Okay, in that case he'll note down the minutes of the meeting, what all information was shared by the beneficiary, and he'll just mention it in the he'll create his own document. The agent would create his own documents with a name, like for example say minutes of the call, and he'll jot down the points, whatever points the beneficiary has shared, and he'll attach in the documents tab, and he'll mention the medium as a telephone call or a mobile call. Okay, this is the medium of communication, of notification. Further, the cause of the event, like what was the cause. For example, let's say your car is insured, you have insured your car. At that time, let's say if there is a glass breakage, there is a certain type of rider which only deals with glass breakages, and let's say you've opted for that rider in your policy. In that case, he'll mention that the glass broke due to an accident, or maybe due to like any there was a robbery, there was a theft. Okay, and they broke the glass and they stole something. Okay, so that everything uh, regarding the cause of the claim, the date of the claim would be mentioned in that notification tab. Okay, for the policyholder, yes, I agree. There would be a different, like a website where they can like enter their user ID, their password, and where they can check the status of their claim, where they can check, okay, what all the riders are present, and like for example, in term life insurance, we have different types of increasing and decreasing type of policies, where let's say if you opt for a increasing term insurance, okay, in that case your on every policy anniversary date your your insurance coverage increases by a certain percentage. So they have an application where yes, they can go and check, okay, on this policy anniversary date, this would be my coverage, and what would be the revised premiums and all. So yes, they have a separate website, or like a separate authentication level, you can say. It might be the case that the website is the same, but the things would which a certain user could access on that website is restricted or limited. There are words like when an agent, the application which I mentioned initially, those applications are usually referred to as portals, agent or broker portal. Yeah, and the applications which the end users like access are your normal websites. So there is no specific application for them. That they would obviously spend more amount when it comes to the end users. Okay, because the portals could be as basic as possible, because end of the day it's their own employees who are working on the portals, right? So they don't need not make it that attractive or that
Right.
appealing. Okay, so when it comes to Siddhi, it makes more sense to that she would work more on the end user side rather than the portal.
Cool, cool, understood. Siddhi, feel free to ask, if you've done any research, or, if you've already read or you've been through the links, right? Now would be the time to ask.
I don't. So regarding UX, I don't know what kind of. I did search a lot, but I didn't find. So can you, Amol, tell me what have in your past experiences, what kind of questions are asked to an UX designer in an interview
Uh,
related
Actually,
to
I'm
the
more
domain?
I'm more on the domain side, because to be really honest, I've interacted with the UX designers like when while I was working with MetLife. At that time, I have just interacted and had quite a few time box sessions. So, what most of the UX designers are concerned with is like building up a like a protocol. For example, I'll give you one example.
Hmm.
Like we had a project in which we were supposed to work on the rec vehicles. Okay, and the application didn't have any what you say uh, functionality which handles the rec vehicles. Okay, it was a totally new functionality. So this is the point where everyone gets involved, right from the BA to the test team to the UX design team, because you don't have any like a page or any tab regarding that's which covers that specific functionality. So
Hmm.
as a UX designer, they were mostly concerned whether first let me just brief you about what we were doing. Like
Okay.
there was a functionality which needed to be implemented which concerned with more about the rec vehicles. When I say rec vehicles, that means the vehicles like which are beyond repair. They like they cannot be reused. Like the client or the user is done with that vehicle. Okay, in that case, what the insurance company does, the insurance company pays the insured of the vehicle the amount which they are liable to, and then they sell that vehicle to the recuperators. Now, who are the recuperators are the people who are concerned with auctioning those wreck materials. Okay, so in that case,
Okay.
there were several pages. Okay, on the portal,
Hmm.
there were almost 3 or 4 tabs which needed to be included. So the UX designers, to begin with, like we had a time box sessions with them, and their main queries was what all functionalities would be covered on a certain page. Okay, so you won't be giving the accident details on the auction page, right? On the auction page, you would just like mention the images and the condition of the vehicle, and the bidder, the people who are going to bid, the details of the bidders. Okay, so only those things need to be included on the auction page. Then comes the payment page, the page where you're paying the uh, whether recuperator is paying you the money. Okay, okay, what the recuperator does, he'll pay you the money, and again that money you need to pay to the like before that you need to pay an amount to the insured. Okay, so obviously all these information, it is not possible to have all the information on one page, right? So at that time, as a UX designer, they are more concerned with what all information needs to be included on a certain page, how that information is going are to be like presented on a certain page. Okay, they are concerned with only that much. I think the wireframes, they build the wireframes, I guess.
Right.
Even yeah, I don't remember it exactly. So they are actually not concerned more about the functionality. They are more concerned about the look and feel, and what all information needs to be covered on a certain page, and how the flow of the, and how the navigation should be. Like for example, let's say if there is a button on page A, okay, and you are to design 4 pages, okay, then let's say if I click on a button on page A, and certain information should be populated on page C. Let's say for example page 3 from page A. So that navigation should be perfect. Like it should not be the case that certain buttons are disabled, or let's say for example there is a character field. Okay, the characters are not out of bound. Like for example, if there is a field, the characters are not crossing the field, and these type of things they were more concerned with. So that is the all the interactions which I used to have with the UX designers.